Hello students, welcome back to Unacademy. This is me Mohamed Azhar M A, your UPSC CSE Educator, and today we are on the day 5 of the studying the most important 456 topics for the Prelims 2026. Without further delay, we are getting into the discussion. So last class we have started with the historical underpinnings and then we have reached to the crown rule. We basically term that particular time from 1858 to 1947. Okay. So the importance of the year or the starting of this period of crown rule, that is of 1815. The importance of this time period is can be traced back to the revolt of 1857, uh, which actually spread across India, and that has actually convinced the British government to have control over the India. The direct control should be handed over to the British crown. So that was the change which happened. So you can connect actually in 1857 revolt, it spread across the country and there were many demands made by different section of the society, and British understood that this is not a right time to continue the same way they were operating. So based on that, the Government of India Act of 1858 was formed. We have discussed the same thing, but I'm just revising. And the major change that happened was Government General of India has transferred to Viceroy of India. So why that change? You can actually relate down by heart that when the Viceroy became. So just understand, crown took the control. So viceroy is a post which will be a representative of the crown to wherever the areas where they have actually colonized. So that is why it have changed, and Lord Canning became the first viceroy. Got it? And we have also said that this particular act actually didn't perform well, because even though the control was taken by the crown, but the civil servants and all the office machineries, everything remained the same. So this was actually creating a lot of confusion. So on the real ground actually no much result have happened. Now comes the other phase, that is the council acts which were brought. So when you hear the term council itself, you can understand there, for example, legislative council will come to your mind, and that's it. That should be the fundamental and easy word that you can actually put it in your mind to have a very good elimination techniques to work out. Because council, throughout this council act, the legislative council had one or other differences were brought. Got it? Now during the crown's rule, the British passed several Indian Council Act, and the intention was that in the councils, the Indian administration was supposed to get increased, because it was the 1857 revolt was actually showing that signs that Indians will be resistant if you are still keeping them out of the administration and the lawmaking process. On that behalf, we have the British came up with the 1861 Councils Act. So this is considered as the major landmark event or the act which was brought after the 1857. So now here, see, we slowly started making the Indian people as part of the legislative mechanism. So what was the reason? Yes, 1857 revolt, and 1857 revolt के बाद 1861 Council Act. In that act we realized that Indians should be part, then only we can diplomatically deal this people. So we have made that, and you have to understand this, these members were actually non-official members. Okay, so non-official members, the few examples were Raja of Banaras, Maharaja of Patiala, Sir Dinkar Rao. These people were actually the few members actually who got into the first time for the lawmaking process. And the other thing that was of the decentralization was actually brought in the previous Charter Act. You must have studied that actually we made it too centralized, right? And that has a backstory of even the company rule also, because once everything got messed up, that single commanding thing should work out for the administration. That is why it was centralized. And you know that Bombay and Madras providences were actually given up. And now when the Indian Council Act of 1861, we have actually brought back that provinces, Bombay and Madras were brought back, and we have governed internal autonomy to these provinces, because the particular act, actually the 1857 revolt has shown various region of our country showed various interest and various form of agitations. So it is not easy to control in a similar way, so that we need to focus on each region specifically, and that was also the motive of giving back to this autonomy to the provinces like Bombay and Madras. And as well as we have also started some regional legislative, like other legislative councils were also started, for example in the Bengal, in the northwestern provinces, and in Punjab. So that again the idea is very simple, the logic, the rationale I have given in the bracket. The regional issues can be discussed. Why British is focusing this? Because the lessons they got from the 1857 revolt, and this is the time were the portfolio system, which was actually introduced by the Lord Canning in 1859, that has actually become official. And what is this portfolio system? Which is giving, see, right now we are seeing that minister system, right, in India. For example, there will be education will be given to one minister, health will be given to one minister. So this was also brought. Why? Again, the logic is 1857, because people were demanding each, and they had special demands. It's not just they're just telling that we want independence. They had concerns on health, they had concerns on the food, they had concerns on the religious belief, right? Especially when it was considered to that cartridge issue. So this has actually got something called portfolio system, and at the end the viceroy was given some ordinance making power. Now again you can link this to 1857. This is what I want you should be able to link and study rather than by hearting. See, the logic is very simple. 1857 revolt was actually, many rebellions have occurred during that point of time. So now the viceroy was given some ordinance making power, which means that even without consulting in the legislative system, the viceroy can come up with the laws which are necessary at that point of time, and the same we are still getting practiced. So what is the idea of this? To control the rebellions, because they have a lesson of 1857 revolt. To control that, this particular ordinance making power was also given to the viceroy. I hope all these points can be connected well, because 1867 and 1857. So Indian Council Act, more or less whatever the features they have brought, it have a direct outcome from the 1857 revolt. Now long three decades, that is 31 years. So 1861 you had the Indian Council Act of 1861, and for 30 years the things, around 31 years, things went well. When it reached 89 days, in this 30 years, you have to understand well, many things have changed. Modern education have started rooting in India. People started learning the modern education. While the modern education was imparting, it is also important to understand they also started learning about the systems across the country. So they understood whatever the British are doing here, that is not something that is supposed to happen, and middle class they have emerged. And most important reason, yes, none other than the expansion of the newspaper and the press, as well as in 1885 the Indian National Congress formation. So now what happened in these 30 years, the things have changed. Now people started getting unified, and the platforms like INC started formed. Now what happens? The agitations and the protest and the Indian people have got a platform to come together. Now they got a leadership, they got more accountable form of protest and agitations, and at some point in INC also extremists were formed. So this is what something actually led to the next particular moment, that was the Indian Council Act of 1892. So INC came, many things have changed. Now Indian got more powerful, then that change will be automatically reflected here. That is, we have to link. Okay, so the major change was the non-official members, where the count was actually increased, but still the majority they kept with the official members. Official members matlab ka those who are part of the Britain government. Okay, so apart from that, since the INC was demanding of more powers and more demands were to be accepted, legislative councils were given more powers, and this powers included, now they are slowly becoming democratic. They are slowly becoming accountable. Why? Yes, INC, the press. Through the press, they were actually informing the people about, this is not something you should suffer upon. You should talk, you should question. So this representative who are from India and who is in the legislative council, they were also got some new provisions or some right. for example, to discuss on the budget, and also they can ask questions to the executive, which was a very major change. So if the question come when it was actually brought, Indian Council Act of 1892. So what was the reason? You should understand the backstory. In that 30 years of span, actually many things have changed, press have come, it made people aware, and INC came, so all these things have happened. Then after that, what happened? In the same Indian Council Act, the non-official members were again nominated. So Central Legislative Council by the Viceroy, it will be nominated, and in Provincial Legislative Council by the governors, it will be nominated. Now you have to understand one thing, even though there were an indirect system of elections, which we can see in this particular act being followed, but there were no places where election as such, the word as such used, which is very important, you have to understand. But yes, some indirect form of elections or representations were there. So this is what Indian Council Act of 1892. So I hope it is clear. So Indian Council Act of 1892 had a the whatever the changes they brought had a very strict backup or link towards the incidents happened in that 30 years of span, including the INC formation, including the rising up of the middle class, etc. Now comes the one of the another important act, which is known as Indian Council Act of 1909, and it is also known as the Morley-Minto reforms. Morley-Minto reforms, right? So this has actually brought many political reforms in India, and one among them, yes, the legislative councils sizes have increased both at the central level and in the provisional level. So what does it mean? Yes, it means that more Indians are getting into the system. Why? Yes, the time is changing. INC is getting stronger. In Congress itself, extremists are getting into the picture. So they need to change. Then they need to make feel Indians that okay, you are also part of the legislative system. So now official majority was retained in the Central Legislative Council, and non-official majority in which the Indians will be included. This majority is retained in the Provincial Legislative Council. Don't sit and by heart this, understand the logic. Central Legislative Council will be the council where most important key decisions about the key areas will be taken, right? Because that is the Central Legislative Council. So obviously, since they are in India, they want to have the control, even though they are trying to make Indians please, but they will never ever leave that majority to India, right? So Central Legislative Council official majority was retained, but in the Provincial Legislative Council, that is very region specific, where there are chances that people will agitate in more higher degree, their non-official majority was actually allowed. Got it? Now I have told you in the previous Council Act, the people got the people in the council got chances to question and to discuss on the budget. Now here little bit more it has become democratic. Now the supplementary questions can also be asked. See the cycle, it is getting more democratic. Why? The Congress is getting powerful. So the chain you should understand, that is what all you need. And even resolutions could be moved on the budget also. It's not that you just listen to the budget and you just say I agree or not agree and come back. You can ask some supplementary questions also. Supplementary means once you ask a question, you get an answer, then also you can ask some question. So more democratic and more representative it has become. Okay, now Indians were associated with the Executive Council of the Viceroy and governors for the first time. So until this time, we were a part of the legislatives, right? Now for the first time, we are getting a chance to get into the Executive Council. And Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first Indian member to become a part of the Viceroy's Executive Council. But other thing also, like slowly they also started to make the communal issues also they know, and they know that India, the strongest powerful thing is that of unity that people have. So at any cost they slowly started studying the demographic politics also. So they started with the communal representation. So separate electorate were given for the Muslims, and for that reasons we call Lord Minto as the father of communal electorate. Now you have to understand here in this reforms, additional representations were also given for 4 category of people: presidency, corporations, chamber of commerce, universities, and zamindars. So this can be a probable question in prelims, who were given the representation. So this universities and zamindars, you may think how it will come, what are the, so just study that presidency, corporations, chamber of commerce, universities, and zamindars were also given a chance to be represented in the system. Okay, now council acts are over. Now comes the GOI Act, Government of India Act. So 2 councils act which were very important, and the latest one we have discussed is Morley-Minto reforms. And thus, that cycle, that trajectory of changes that's happening, the chain of changes. It became, they can question on the budget. Now in the Morley-Minto reforms, it became like supplementary questions can also be asked. So I think by listening my class as well as seeing the slide itself I have given, maybe you may feel like it is very content flat, but my idea was that it should be a single resource, so that in bracket I have given the logic also wherever it is possible. Now we are moving to the new phase, that is of Government of India Act, and GOI Act of 1919 is also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Got it? Now what is this particular Montagu-Chelmsford reforms? Because most of the constitutional changes were brought during this particular point of time, and Montagu, he brought up with a statement in 1917. Now the things have been changed a lot. The last council act was the time period was when it was actually happened. It was happened the time 1909, right? So 1909, and you see now it is 1919. So 10 years. In this 10 years, the same INC must have got stronger, the same middle class must have got stronger, right? And the same educated class also got empowered, and more people are trying to get into the civil service. They are aware about their right. Now what happened? Montagu, he came up with a statement in 1917, and he declared that, see, don't worry my people, the objective of our British government is that gradually we will be giving you a kind of a freedom or whatever you are looking at. So he said that the gradual introduction of responsible government in India is what our objective, said by the Montagu statement in 1917, which is known as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Okay, and the other major change was that the subjects were divided into central and the provincial subjects. Okay, and what is this, is what is called as the diarchy, right? Dual government. So we called it as, transferred subjects will be the reserve subjects will be there. Okay, so but it failed actually. In practice it was not successful. And the other change that was what is the introduction of bicameralism. Bicameralism means there will be a council of state as well as legislative assembly. Still right now we are also following that. So all this is what constitutional. Regarding the political practice, many changes were brought. That was the Montagu-Chelmsford reform. And also direct elections were actually introduced, but there was a problem in this direct elections. Even though it was direct, but the voting rights or the franchisee or the people who will be coming under this voting rights category were very limited, because the franchisees were given on the who have some property ownership, who do the tax payment, and based on your educational qualification. So Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, yes, it introduced the elections, direct elections for the first time, but the franchisees were very limited. Those who have some property ownership, those who do the tax payment, and as per the educational qualification only, these were given. So what you can remember is 1919. So 19 are getting repeated, right? 19 are getting repeated. So what that's what I given as memory trick. So 1990 DD. Okay, one is diarchy, one is direct elections. These two things were actually brought in the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. So we have discussed, this is very important. Okay, Montagu-Chelmsford reforms and Minto-Morley reforms, both are very important. Both are very important. Okay, so now the additional provisions that were brought is 3 out of 6 members of the Viceroy's Executive Council had to be Indians. Earlier Sinha got, now he was the one. Now 3 members must be from India. And this communal representation which were actually brought for the Muslims, previously it has got extended. It has got extended for Sikh, Indian Christians, Anglo Indians, and the Europeans. Okay, and also there were many other changes also came, but coming to the last very important things was that of a new office of High Commissioner for India was created in London. For example, like ambassadors, right? So these kind of ambassadors, uh, they also started some office. A new office of High Commissioner for India was created in London, and the Central Public Service Commission was established in 1926 to make the recruitment of to civil services more better and more meritorious people. And this is what we are believing as the, even though directly, and after that Federal Commission is coming, from there only the things are changing, but still we are considering this as the genesis of the predecessor of UPSC. That is why in 2025 to 6 we are celebrating the 100 years of Union Public Service Commission. Okay, and later the central budget was actually divided, and now provisional budgets were separated from the central budget. And the other thing, see, Montagu said that in his statement that gradually we are going to give you kind of an independence. So in that regard, a statutory commission was to be appointed after 10 years. So in 1927, as it was said, a commission was brought which was known as the Simon Commission. The major drawback of the commission was it had no members. So the question was very straightforward. Without Indian members, how you are going to take care of the Indians, and how you are going to give us, gradual freedom or gradual independence. That is why this commission was criticized. And when he arrived in India, people were calling the slogan, Simon, go back. Oh, so we are not going back. Simon, let Simon go back. So we are stopping here for today, and in the next session we will continue. And I think in one more session we will be done with all these things. Let me know your feedback on the comment section, like how far you have felt that to, apart, you have studied this, I know for sure, in polity and even in history also, but now I try to give you the link and the logic and the rationale for every decision and every policy changes that have occurred right from 1600 to that of the Government of India acts. So that's from my end for today. Thank you, and let's crack it with Unacademy.